try to do more of the chatting,
I,
Tim.
there you go. Say it again.
Try to do more of the chatting for your poor voice. It's coming.
It's crazy. It's getting better, but this still is. I've got my little Ricolas. Yeah, it's just crazy that it's still hanging on. I sound terrible. I don't feel bad, so I just sound terrible. But yes, it is. It is silly, but anyway, it is what it is. So, but we're really glad you're here. Those of you attending in person. So, if you're watching this video later, let me tell you, you can join us live, and you can type your questions in the Q&A on the and anonymously. You're not seen or heard on these, as you can see, but we'd welcome you to join this or any of the other webinars. We have some special edition ones. We've had a bunch of special edition ones, and you can watch those videos, on our website. But we have Leilani Sinclair coming back to talk about adult children of sex addicts. That will be on the 20th of this month. That's a Thursday. So check that one out. I've got some more planned and scheduled, and we'll keep posting those. But Erin, we have a question. We got there. Okay. I have read a number of articles about how a man's brain reacts to repeated exposures to porn. My question is for the betrayed. How is her, that would be my brain, be affected after decades of hidden betrayal?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, so thank you for bringing up, like, yes, there's a lot of new research and a lot on your brain on porn. But in terms of betrayal trauma, not a ton of research. It's really kind of come onto the scene in, I'd say the last 10 years, thanks to like ITAP and CSATs and people that are creating more space for partners to find healing. And what I'll say is that what they're discovering is that betrayal trauma looks like PTSD in the brain. It acts the same, it reacts the same. And so really it's a long process of, I think, moving away from your own intuition, moving away from your own ability to trust yourself, alongside not being able to obviously trust the person that you're with. And it's damaging. It's damaging because once that kind of rug is pulled and disclosure or discovery happens, it's this hypervigilance in the central nervous system. It's the brain wants to gather information. It wants to know everything, because if I know everything, and I don't mean everything in terms of the details, the brain tries to fill in gaps. It tries to go in and say, if I have a complete record of this and I understand how this has all happened, then I can protect myself from being hurt again in the future. And I'll tell you that is tough, because you have the same similar, with PTSD, it's flashbacks, nightmares, re-experiencing, hypervigilance, that all of those things can be true for betrayal trauma. We have a lot of partners that have somatic symptoms, right? That years of that trauma, whether it's just waiting for the shoe to drop and then the shoe drops, or thinking things are good and then things go bad again, that experiencing migraines and gut health issues, difficulty sleeping, inability to, you know, feel present in the moment, whether that's showing up for work, showing up for children, showing up just for yourself. So there's devastating effects on partners, especially when they've lived through this for a number of years. But I think the hardest one to hear, and the hardest one for me, was when I felt like I almost was like in a movie in the days coming. And the biggest thing was questioning everything, questioning my own reality, questioning my own intuition, questioning my own thoughts, and then a lot of the somatic symptoms, not being able to sleep, intrusive thoughts and images that I didn't even create in my own awareness, but the brain is trying to be helpful. And unfortunately, the way that our brain is trying to be helpful actually sometimes works against the healing process, because the healing process is a focus on healing our intuition, healing our ability to feel safe, at least within our own bodies and our own experiences. And it's actually a focus away from, the person that has harmed us, right? We've been hyper vigilant to say that if I control this thing over here, then I feel more safe. But the truth is, you can't control someone else. It's not possible. You could set boundaries, internal, external. You can, take space, but the healing journey is about refocusing on self and how I can get through this disaster, being who is integrity with myself, and also recognizing that I have my own back and I can build community that is trustworthy. So there's a lot there. It's a devastating journey. I take time to really make sure that at least our men in treatment understand the impact, because all the letters that we get for inpatient residential clients, we get letters from their partners back home. And sometimes that thread is just, it's the body stuff, it's the somatic stuff, it's the things that are real. I really have migraines, I really have, stomach issues, chronic illness, all of those things. But the sense of being alone in a relationship, that they felt abandoned long before they knew that there was betrayal, and it was simply just feeling like there was no one on the other receiving end, in the relationship. So yeah, it looks a lot like PTSD in the brain and in the body. And similarly, the healing path is similar.
So I have one question or two questions, depending. But like one of them, I'm thinking, okay, you mentioned like this stuff has been going on. It has felt off for a longer period of time. So I'm thinking there's the PTSD or whatever brain issues could happen as a result of the chronic gaslighting, blame shifting, whatever. And then there's also if someone has known about the betrayal and they're on that path of like, I've known for, 7 years that, and this just never changes. And they feel like those, and they may ultimately be the same, way it manifests, but it also feels like those are two different things that could be happening or combined, honestly. So,
Absolutely. So for the partner that didn't know, right? And there may have been, their intuition was firing for years. They went to couples therapy. I read over and over and over again, the partners begin to say, what is wrong with me? Right? Especially because
mhm.
you're being gaslit and told oftentimes that it is you. That partners get smaller and smaller and smaller. And they stop being able to say no. And it's because it's done in a kind of a crafty way, right? It's manipulative, it's difficult, that you do start to question, God, I'm told it's me, I'm blamed, I'm in these defensive moments. It's like, well, I'm too naggy, or I'm too needy, or I'm too much, or all the things that that's traumatic in a way that we actually start to turn on ourselves. We start to turn and betray ourselves because we don't even know there's betrayal, right? But what we start doing is saying, that can't be, or, maybe it is me, or we start evaluating the way we show up and really coming down hard on us. If it's, lack of sex, is it my body? Is it, I'm not initiating enough. I'm not giving enough words of affirmation. So that's the sad part is, so it is, there's this turning around, almost turning your back on yourself because you don't know what the hell's going on. And it's maddening. And oftentimes partners look to the solution as, well, must be me. But I'm here to say you didn't cause this and you didn't create this. You were gaslit for a number of years. And yes, all relationships are two sides. There's a multitude of things going on. But if you were being betrayed and your partner as a result, their addict is, they're pushing you away, they're gaslighting you, they're defensive, they're manipulating, they're trying to be, look over here, don't look over here. Yeah, that's got its own bag of really challenging moments. Now, for the ones that knew, there's a deep pain in that, because you get hope in between, right? Maybe you see some level of action, or it feels like things are on the right track, and then you get knocked out at the knees again. And then what's challenging about that is it almost imprints like a blueprint or a template on your responses. So even if it's something that's maybe more minor, when you look at all of it together, it feels in your body like day one all over again. And it's like, are we here again? And then you start to say, God, am I dumb for saying, like, we can just be really unkind to ourselves in this process? And the truth is, it's an impossible situation. When you love somebody and you also know that somebody is sick, somebody is dealing with something that my therapist used to say to me, he loves you, he does not have control of himself. And so two things can be true. Do I believe that he loves me? Absolutely. I also know that that's where the fear comes in. It's they lack control over themselves. And unless they're in, you know, bringing that behavior into concrete structure and recovery, and then bringing that into concrete relationship with other men in recovery, other, groups, accountability, where it outsources that need to play mom or probation officer, then you're going to feel unsafe, but yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tammy, because the truth is both are, uh, it's like a slow train wreck, or it's being hit by the train 15 times. Both are not ideal or fun, or, you know, it's awful. And I have a lot of empathy, having been through it myself and having worked with many, many women that have been through it, and men.
And I was thinking, it isn't always just the betraying partner that is gaslighting. I mean, we hear of family systems,
Oh,
in-laws, friends, whatever. I mean, it can be a society, like all those pictures on, ads that where somebody looks different than me and they must be better. And if I just was whatever. So, while that's a piece of it and often a large chunk of it, there still can be other messages. So, learning to not betray yourself. I will put a plug in and I will put the link in the chat. But Debbie McCrae is going to do for betrayed partners boundaries work groups starting in April, and part of that is internal boundaries, so that I'm not choosing to betray myself. And that's ultimately what it is. Once at some point we have to, we're going like, yep, I'm going to betray myself and do this, or nope, I'm not going to betray myself. And that's where empowering can start to happen, and that's where things can start to shift for partners, regardless of what the addict partner is doing or not doing. So we really want to have you have the tools and support to be successful with that. So, okay.
mhm.
So the next question. I'm just starting my treatment and have been isolated for years. What is the best way to find a sponsor and or accountability partners, please?
Yeah.
So start with our online work groups. I don't know. We've got drop-in groups and things too. We've got resources on 12 step and things like that. But those work groups, I'm going to give a little plug for those. I just mentioned the boundaries one for partners. But we have sex addiction 101. We've got porn addiction 101. Those are foundational components. And guess what? The people that participate in those, this is for men, but the guys that participate in these will share, this is an option, but they share phone numbers and they start getting peer contacts within those groups so that they have some accountability. They have some tools. They get a foundation of things. That is, and yeah, get a sponsor, go to a 12-step meeting, raise your hand. But Erin, I'm going to find links while Erin talks.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best thing about 12 step is it's widely available, even as programs, which, there are virtual meetings 24 hours a day, right? A lot of cities now have in-person S meetings. And the best way to find a sponsor, my sponsor once told me, was you listen in the rooms, and you choose someone that has what you want. You find someone where, whether it's their share or how they show up, or that they maybe have a life in recovery that you hope and aspire to have one day, you just go up and say, hey, I'm looking for a sponsor. You can also raise your hand and say, I'm looking for a sponsor. If anyone is, and they'll even say in meetings, hey, if anyone's willing to sponsor, raise your hand. So, and in virtual meetings, you can do that via the chat oftentimes. But I remember coming into recovery, and I had to leave my entire, friend group, home, city I lived in, went to treatment, and had to start over somewhere else. And I remember feeling like I'm never gonna find friends again that don't drink and don't do drugs. Like, who am I? It was like an identity crisis. And on my 1 year sober birthday, I threw a pool party, and there was like 70 people that showed up for me in 1 year. I could say each one of them played a part in my recovery. So it was I made it my mission to build community around me so that I didn't feel isolated anymore. And I can be an extrovert, but I'm primarily at my core, I'm an introvert. And if you stay in your room and stay in your house, you're not going to meet those people. So make the commitment of it's time to find my tribe. And I don't care what that is. If it's in, you know, it can be, for partners, I would say when you're looking for your tribe, right? Yes, we have a ton of resources, right? We have work groups as well. For addicts, same thing. Start going around the places where you're going to find people who aren't just going to sit around and complain about it, but are actually doing the work to be better. Those are the ones you want on your tribe. You want people that are 2 steps ahead of you that can help guide, support, and pour into you on your journey. So there's a number of different ways, but definitely joining a group, and not just seat warming, right? Go up to someone you liked their share, tell them you liked their share. Hey, I'm lonely, I'm isolated. Could we grab coffee sometime? Right? They always say just extend the hand, and somebody's gonna grab onto it because everybody knows what it feels like to walk in for the very first time, and and nobody comes there on their best day, right? So there are options, available, and you just have to make it your mission to continue pushing forward and making connection. It's a
I
crucial.
put a whole bunch of links in, including so on 2/7 of last year, Scott and I did a webinar about navigating the S groups. I'm on the board of directors for SCA, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous, but there's SLAA, SPA. I mean, like blah, blah, blah. There's a whole alphabet. I also put the link for all of those groups as well. Find the healthy ones. And as Scott shared in a 12-step webinar, like it doesn't mean I only go to SAA or whatever. It's like, find if that's a healthy meeting on Tuesdays and SLA is on Wednesdays, and find the healthy meetings. And we talked about what a healthy meeting is too. So lean into that. I'm so glad you're here. And this is good, but connecting like in a drop-in group in a 12-step in our work groups, those are better because those you are actually connecting with people and and seeing real people, not just viewing. So I would encourage you to, lean in. It's so good to be in recovery. Like I promise you, you like Erin said, a year down the line, she has a pool full of friends. That's real friends, not just using friends or whatever. So, is it possible to have a successful relationship with your addict partner if you don't think you can ever be sexually intimate with them again after learning what they did to act out? Can you eventually have harmony and emotional fulfillment with each other without this sexual intimacy component?
I mean, is it possible? Sure. Um, is it recommended? Maybe not. And here's why. I think that it's absolutely natural to be in that place. I don't know how long ago, um, you know, you've been you've discovered this, how long you've been on the path. Um, but it's absolutely natural in the beginning to think, I would not touch him with a 10-foot pole. Okay. Because the body keeps the score. Sex is the most vulnerable you're ever going to be with another human being. And so you're like, I'm not opening myself up to that. And I'm disgusted by what I've learned. And there's a lot in there. I do think though, there are a lot of people who on the other side of this, right? When there's a lot of healing and good recovery for both partners, that they have said that their relationship is better than it was all the years before. And that's because it's like there's no more barriers, there's no more walls. You've really started to strip down the layers of masks and defensiveness, and true healing and true vulnerability has been possible. So I would say that, you know, it's I want to normalize that that's normal to experience feeling that way. And also to say, I don't think I ever could, right? But I always say, see what happens when you're engaged in healing, when you're engaged in open communication, when you're engaged with, don't count it out forever because you don't know where you'll be, 6 months, a year from now, 2 years from now, you don't know where you'll be. But I do think that, you know, two people that have emotional connectivity are friends, right? Some people choose to have their romantic partnerships be partnerships, but most would say there's something missing, right? Because what makes a romantic partnership different than a friendship is that there is the romantic component. And so I would say navigate this healing process. Um, get some input, because if you're feeling, hey, let's say we've been on this journey for a long time and I still don't feel safe, then meeting with a qualified professional to say, is the barrier on my front and my healing, is the barrier on their front, and that their behavior still doesn't make me feel safe? Is it that we're not compatible in that way? Is it, do we need to meet with a sex therapist because we've been sober and on this journey for 2 years, and that's not coming back? Like, so there's options out there. I would just say, instead of counting it out forever and saying we're going to stay married until we die and never once, have the physical component again, explore the options that are available to you. Um, but yeah, I mean, some couples, they, I mean, I would say later in life, especially, are like, we're companions, we're best friends. Um, and others that that's never going to be good enough. So I just think, I don't know you guys specifically, I don't know the whole story, but I would just say explore the options that healing has to offer, and don't take it off the table forever, because you may be surprised by your own journey as a couple if you stick with it.
And I was thinking, you can't have harmony in emotional fulfillment with somebody who's in active addiction.
Right.
So if that person is actually doing the recovery work, they're going to show up differently. And if you're stuck thinking, like in those ruminating thoughts about, what they did, like Erin mentioned, talking to a therapist too, but like if I would encourage you to work on that with a qualified therapist. It may be EMDR, it may be some other trauma things to help you get those images unstuck. but but you can't have a even a great friendship with somebody who's in active addiction. So the wait and see, I love it, not today, and be okay with that. But are you building connections that are real and meaningful? And what Erin said is so true. We hear from people who are really on this journey and really on this recovery path, that the relationship they have is so much better, so much more honest, so much, like, it's just so much more connected in a real and meaningful way than they ever had, even for betrayed partners who didn't know, like it shifts for them. So perhaps give yourself some space and grace to go, not now, but one of the things for me in recovery is the forevers and nevers and always, and yeah, like life is just too variable, and I find there's a lot more gray in it than those absolutes. So giving yourself permission to explore that for yourself and what's right for you, great. And honestly, if you're going to be in a relationship and it's going to be more platonic, then both of you need to agree to that as well. I mean, that's navigating the relationship space. And if you're both good with that, rock on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Newly betrayed partner here. I've been feeling a bit uncomfortable when it comes to seeing intimacy on TV videos. Is there anything that could help with getting past that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first, I'm so sorry. This is not a club any one of us wants to be welcomed into. Um, and you're here. And I'm grateful you found our resources, because there's a lot of hope, a lot of healing, a lot of education, a lot of community that you can find here. But I think that this is again relatively normal, right? What would have typically been, oh, watching a movie, ooh, things get spicy, now has pain attached to it. It's a trigger for reminding you that that is either A, not safe for you, and I don't want to be physically intimate with anybody right now, or the images of what my partner could have been out doing. Um, so I think that is normal in the beginning, right? It's what we would call a trauma trigger, right? So if you seeing this, hey, for a period of time, I'm just not gonna watch, the next show on HBO, because they're all like softcore porn, and it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me sad. It brings up anger inside of me. I don't want this. So giving yourself the grace to just stick to PG for a while, right? If you notice that that's prolonging, right, there's a lot of work that can be done around trauma triggers that are kind of stored in the body, because trauma is stored in the body. It's why I mentioned all those somatic type symptoms. Things like EMDR have been really profoundly helpful for a lot of partners that have experienced, flashback images, or certain places or certain moments that they don't want to lose. It's like, I don't want to lose my enjoyment in these things because they're colored by the trauma that I've now experienced. So they'll do work on some subconscious work that's involved in the body on those specific triggers, and find a lot of relief from that. But you're new here, give yourself grace. It's okay to stay away from the things that don't feel good right now. But if you notice that hey, I want this to change. Like I want to go back to enjoying my rom-coms, and this is annoying to me and I hate the way I feel, then you definitely can do some work on that around those trauma triggers with a therapist, especially one that's, brain spotting, EMDR, somatic work. There's a number of different avenues that you can take to work on those on more of a subconscious and body level.
And and if you are not in the betrayed partner work group that started last week Tuesday, I can't recommend that enough. It's such a good foundational component for betrayed partners, and you could still be added to that. There'll be another group that starts in April as well, but you can email Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com if you want information on that. Okay, next one. My emotions are all over the place 4 months after discovery. How do I convince my stepspouse not a crazy person that I love him and want to connect with one person, but hate him and yell at him at the next? Do we hear this all the time?
Yeah,
Yes.
welcome to what we call ambivalent love, right? That's why they say like the line between love and hate can be so thin because you can only be that angry at somebody who you actually love, right? They always say, and we say to our addicts, like you should be really worried when they don't care at all. If they're angry, it's an expression of I love you and you hurt me and I'm trying to like shake you awake, like you're not hearing me, but that's a sign of I'm fighting for us still, you know? So, yes, your emotions are going to be all over the place. And obviously, there's tools for self regulation. I'll tell you that for myself, I was all over the place as well. We see a lot of partners that are all over the place. And it's hard. Sometimes they'll go into therapy and they look like the crazy person, right? Because the addict's sitting there, cool as a cucumber, and they look like the one that's losing it. We've even had partners be like diagnosed borderline or what. And it's like, no, they're in the throes of trauma right now. They don't know what is up or down. 1 minute, they're like, I want to run to you because I want you to soothe the pain that I'm in. And the next, it's like, I want to pitch slap you because you did this to me. It's a very ambivalent place to be. And 4 months in, you're in the throes of it, right? So I worked a lot on my own regulation because it mattered to me how I showed up in my own integrity, right? That it was okay for me to express pain. It was okay for me to express hurt, triggers, all of those things. But when I initially, felt rage come up, I'm not somebody that reacts out of rage. Like that's just not who I am. And I can tolerate all kinds of crises, all kinds of big things. I am not someone that is that way. So when I started to feel like my internal system was not in a line with my character, was not in a line with who I want to be, and I'm not shaming getting upset and angry. Look, these things deem that necessary and appropriate sometimes. What I'm saying is that I feel in you the pull between how can I how can I like love somebody and be so upset and angry at them? And I think what we have to understand is that anger is a lid. It's a lid on something that is deeper, right? It's a secondary emotion. Whereas, you know, abandonment, hurt, rejection, betrayal, sadness, despair, all of those things are more primary. And so it's how can I regulate myself when I'm feeling those big emotions? Because the truth is, most addicts are very conflict avoidant. They cannot tolerate the level of energy. They didn't know how to hold, it's like emotional kindergarten, like we say in treatment. It's learning how to have wants and needs, how not to leave when I'm feeling something big, how to like sit in it. They don't know how to deal with that level of intensity coming at them. And I'm not saying that should be why for me, I wanted to be in congruence with my character. So I did a lot of work on, man, if I was stuck in that fight or flight response, lots of tools, right? Meditation, journaling. I would do rage writing, right? You could write pages and pages of it and then burn it, rip it up, but it got it out. And then what I would find is after a few pages, what was really under that would start to come out. And that would be the thing that I would go to my husband and share. I would go and say, and not right when he walked in the door from work, like I would say I need a place to share some pain, and I would trigger him to, he knows that's the container. I need to be able to hold some of this for her because that's how I help her heal, right? But I didn't end up ever feeling like that need was met if I was yelling and screaming. I felt like I felt worse about myself because it's not who I am. And I felt like it pushed him further away. And I'm like, okay, so here we are. So I think working on a other women to be able to talk to, vent to, let some of that steam off, being in therapy to process this stuff, but also working on self-regulation tools, right? I would say when all else failed, I would cold plunge it. Like whether that's literally jump into my pool in the middle of winter or like get into a ice cold shower, something to shock my central nervous system out of it. I would listen to meditation. Sarah Blondin is amazing. You can find her on Apple Music, wherever, but her voice was so soothing and it helped me just to kind of come back into my body. So there's a number of different tools that you can use, but this is so normal. I just want you to know that your emotions are going to be all over the place for a little while. You're going to feel like, come here, go away, come here, go away. I love you. And you're the person I used to run to. And now I have to run from you. And that feels so counterintuitive that there's a push and pull there. That's that, that is par for the course. But there is, tools and ways to help kind of, both of you getting on the same page, because absolutely he needs to hear the pain. He needs to hear it, right? He doesn't, it's not this, well, get over it. It's been 4 months. No, that's not, this stuff's going to come up for a long time, but doing it in a way that he can hear and he can meet you in that need and say, I want to reassure you, or I want to be here with you. That's how healing can help in the relationship.
Next question. After 10 years of discovering, my husband left suddenly to pursue another relationship. After an 8-month separation, we reconciled and he sought recovery for a short time. 2.5 years later, he just left again after a discovery. Is this common practice to suddenly abandon family due to deep dive back into addiction? This is difficult to process and be back in this position after I thought we were working to move past this.
I mean, a couple of things. Is it normal or not? I wouldn't say it's common practice, right? It's definitely not good behavior. But an addict in the throes of active addiction, yeah, yeah, sure. The shame comes up, and guess who's the mirror for my shame? You are. I'm going to run away. I'm going to run away. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to, the defensiveness, all that stuff that comes up, right? Running away is what they've always done. It's why addiction in itself is even present in their life, is because they can't manage that. They don't know how to manage emotions, sitting in their own skin, feeling emotions, feeling pain. Now, the taking off, pursuing another relationship, I mean, yeah, not kind at the very least. I mean, active addiction. There's this fantasy of, when I look at the wreckage I've caused right in front of me, the fantasy of, well, I could start over where I don't have all this baggage and all these angry people and all this stuff to heal. I could just start over here. I will tell you that every single time they recreate the exact same scenario, when you don't heal this stuff, good luck. You will recreate wherever and whoever you're with, wherever you go. And that's what we tell our guys is, look, that it's normal for the fantasy to come up because it looks like this mountain ahead of me is so big I can never climb it. Like, it's scary. And that's the truth. It's scary. It's intimidating. I don't know if I have it in me. Like, I don't want to hurt people again. All of those fears, the shame, all that stuff comes up. But yeah, that's just active addiction. Yeah. Running away from your family is the opposite of accountability. It's the opposite of recovery. Pursuing the other relationship is just stupid. I mean, if you think it's going to be better, good luck, especially when that other partner, knew you were in a committed relationship. So they're just another acting out partner. Um, yeah. So this is, of course, difficult to process. Yeah. Your husband is in throes of addiction. And when things get hard, instead of having someone that shows up to the table and owns it and says, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this better, they bail, they run. And that's, yeah, that would be a deal breaker for me, for sure. that would be very tough to go through for the second time. Yeah. And so I'm really sorry that you're going through this. Please find good support for yourself. Please. Um, because this can be very isolating. And yeah. And that, like I said earlier, the ones who've had to do this for the second, third, fourth time, it's even more sadistic because it's like I had the hope. And then how do you believe in hope again and again and again? It becomes more difficult for sure. So I'm really sorry.
So I keyed in on a couple of things. Um, he sought recovery for a short time, and this is the story I'm telling myself is he did it long enough to get you back 2.5 years later, and it sounds like he dropped off all of those. Oh, I got you back. Now I don't need to do any of that work. Um, and so, then he's off to the races. So doing recovery work and being in recovery are not the same things, just not acting out in that moment, yeah. It was a means to an end. He got you back. And then the other thing I was looking at is I thought we were working to move past this. And I always use we work through this, like it never we as a person in recovery, I have to know, what my actions were and what my addiction does. And so I can't blindly, shut the door on it and go, oh, it's all in the past and it'll never. No, all of that stuff is right there. And then this is the hard thing. And please hear this with the heart that I'm asking. What are you going to do when he comes back? He's got a pattern. You're the safe landing place. And if he gives you lots of lip service to promises of like, oh, I promise I won't do that again, what are you going to do? And you get to pick. You absolutely get to pick. But unless and until he gets the help that he needs to do life differently, this is his pattern, and so you will be caught. You will be caught up in that web. If he gets help, I mean, people in recovery, we have we have a residential treatment program for guys like him. People can heal, people can change, people can learn to show up for themselves and for their partners and families. We can learn to do things differently, but we can't if we just keep, running away and thinking the affair partner is going to be better. Here's another thing. I've had a lot of calls from people who were the previous affair partner thinking that it was going to be different for them. And guess what? It wasn't. They just, now that person's acting out, still, but now on them. So unfortunately, your husband, hasn't yet done the work to be different. So I would really like you to have a plan for, what are you going to do, when he comes knocking on the door again. So, and whatever you pick, it's your life. So just be ready. Okay. At the advice of people from your group, my wife and I started to see a PSAT.
Might be CSAT. Might be
Well,
PSAT.
there's a PSAP and
Pastoral
those are pastoral, but they're not therapists. So
Sure.
she wants sex 3 times a week, but doesn't want any part of other parts of intimacy. She's threatened to have an affair if I don't put out enough. The PSAT just thinks we have a libido mismatch, but doesn't think she's a sex addict. What types of things should I bring up about the things she's told me, but won't repeat to the therapist to help them understand the situation? This is complicated.
Well, first thing I would say is probably go see a CSAT. If you're seeing a PSAT, which is a pastoral kind of accreditation,
Professional, they're not
but
therapists.
but
Yeah.
it's not a therapist. So just leaving that there if you're feeling like we're not, I'm not sure if we're addressing this the way. But yeah, there's none of this is okay. I mean, if you don't put out, I'm gonna have an affair. What the hell is that? No, that's not threatening to leave, to have an affair. Like that's not okay. Um, sure, do libido mismatches exist? Yeah, but that this issue goes beyond that, right? There's more to this story than a libido mismatch, right? Lots of relationships have libido mismatches, and you don't have somebody that's threatening you, you're going to give it to me or I'm out of here. So that would be my greater concern is like, whoa, that's how we're handling this is like give it to me or I'm gone. That's not right. So okay, you said, what types of things should I bring up about these things she's told me, but won't repeat to the therapist to help them understand the situation? Yeah, I mean, I would probably be saying these things to the therapist, if they're a therapist, in front of, yeah, saying, hey, I want the space to kind of like share about my reality and why this isn't just libido. Like this is, because honestly, if you're being told, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to leave, I imagine that makes you feel less likely to want to have more sex, right? Less likely to want to, because you feel like an object, a means to an end. Or and it's interesting, we usually hear the scenario flip-flopped in
I
heterosexual
was thinking
couples.
the same thing. If this was a male
Oh,
that was telling me,
people would
give it
be
to me or else I'm out, and a
slaughtering.
female partner, yeah, like
Yeah,
I
but this is
cannot
not
imagine
okay.
a CSAT going like, well, that's just a libido issue. Yeah.
Right. No. So yeah, I would be getting honest. If your wife's not going to say it to the therapist, you need to say it to the therapist, right? Um and ultimately getting down to what's under this. What need is being met or not met by sex? You're saying, I want all areas of intimacy. I want to know you. I want to spend time with you. I want to cuddle. I want to maybe like go on a date, do other things. And she likely is probably more of the avoidantly attached one when we talk about attachment styles, being like this, maybe she learned at some point in her life sex is love, but actual intimacy doesn't feel safe. So there's lots of layers under the surface here that need to be addressed, because on at face value, sure, you could be like, oh, it's a libido issue, but there's a lot of depth that goes underneath these issues that needs to be looked at. So, and a therapist can't help you if they don't know. If they're just saying, oh, you're sitting there and both of you are being real nice about what's going on, then they don't actually know what's going on. So how can they actually treat the true issues that are underneath the surface? Because I think that those are some pretty important pieces to the story there. Um, and also, a partner that wants sex 3 times a week doesn't also automatically mean she's a sex addict, right? So I'm just saying that there's a lot of gray in between. When we talk about compulsive sexual behavior, oftentimes it's sometimes expressed in the relationship, but a lot of times it's expressed outside the relationship. And obviously she's putting that threat out there. So I would just put all the cards on the table, get real honest. Your wife may not like that, but you can prep her ahead of time. I'm going to be honest, with our therapist. I think it's important for us to put all the cards on the table and be honest, or what are we doing here? Yeah.
Dr. Rob in June of last year did a webinar on this, the Q&A, and he pulled up the top 15 um, other words for intimacy. None of them were sex. And I said, and I'm not, like Erin said, I'm not saying she's a sex addict, but sex addicts prove all the time that sex does not have to be intimate or vulnerable. It could be transactional or whatever. So you're looking for connection, and she's looking for whatever. And I don't know what that is. That would be more to be explored. But yeah, I'm with Erin. It's like the two of you are sitting there, use your words, say your truth, like, yeah, because clearly this is not bringing you closer together or making, the relationship better. If there's still demands like that. So, okay, next one. I'm betrayed here. 9 months since discovery, my partner attends upwards of 20 meetings a week. He facilitates some too, yet he still lacks empathy. He gaslights, uh, minimizes, deflects, and plays victim weakly. The amount of meetings he attends seems absurd, but I think they're the only thing keeping him afloat in attempted recovery. He gives advice instead of asking for it. He hasn't done a disclosure yet. Today, I asked him to share his accountability in his groups in a more specific way instead of vague, and he chose to stay vague while simultaneously saying that he knows he's responsible for 99% of our issues. He's trying, but it's inconsistent, and with the groups, it stays as a mass level. How does he dig deeper when he's uncomfortable exposing himself in groups? How do I not have my blood boil when he's playing the role of leader and advice giver instead of digging more deeply into his own recovery? He has a CSAT and is seeking a sponsor. I have an APSAT and attend groups. So what I hear you saying is he's 9 months in, he's doing a whole bunch of leading in groups, and he doesn't even have a sponsor. So we call that, talking the talk, not walking the walk. one of my big red flags was like, how do you know what he's saying in a meeting? Like, I'm concerned you're listening in, and I'm going to say that from a yeah, an addict, standpoint is like, why would he say anything specific if you're able to know what he's saying? So I'd be cautious about that. But there's so much here. I'm really glad you're sharing this. Um, and I'm glad you have an app set and attend groups. And I will share one more thing before I turn it over to Erin. So Debbie Allen in June of 2023 did a webinar on a 3-circle plan for betrayed partners. Highly encouraged. I think that would be super helpful for you. And also, I would love for you to participate in Debbie McCrae's. We've got too many Debbies. Look at all these. Debbie McCrae's boundary work group that starts in April. I can't help but think that that could be really meaningful for you at this juncture. So, and then Erin.
Yeah, and maybe he tells you, no, I didn't share that, or I, I don't know. Obviously, yeah, wouldn't want you listening into recovery meetings or monitoring that type of thing. But yeah, so I've seen 20 meetings a week is a bit excessive. Obviously, like, look, there are people that need it. There are people who will go and sit in a whole day worth of meetings because they're clinging on, by their knuckles. Like they're not gonna. So I'm not downplaying that, but 20 meetings on a regular basis seems like a lot. And I'll tell you that we have clients who are addicted to validation, right? And so they're the ones that get real comfortable walking in and becoming the next leader, the next, because guess what you get to do when you're the leader and advice giver? You get to hide behind that, right? And so I always say, and this is the whole point of getting a sponsor, that you don't sponsor other people, right? Until you've at least worked the steps, and have a sponsor so you can walk them down the path that you've been walked. But I just feel like, yeah, to some degree, there may be some level of hiding here, hiding in the, you know, I'm the next rescuer, right? I get validation from being needed. I get validation from being important. I get validation from being wanted. And it's actually my way to bypass the vulnerability piece, that if nobody has to really see me, I can stand at the podium. I can, and so it's just something to look for. I mean, I would recommend the two of you going in to see maybe his CSAT together, just saying, hey, I don't know how to address some of my concerns. Would it be okay if like I come or you come to see my apps out with me? Like, let's sit down and talk about this. Um, and really just bringing up, like, it would be hard to foster a healing relationship when you're in 3, 4 meetings a day. Um, and you're slinging advice to everybody at 9 months sober. So there is something up here that doesn't sound right. But again, I think bring it up to a qualified professional, have like a joint discussion about it. You can say, these are my concerns. And I imagine your blood boils because it's a familiar pattern. It's not something that's new. He's just doing the thing he used to do, not in recovery, right? Whether that's in the friend group or at work, or that what you're picking up on is this need for validation, need to be important, need to be, you know, the leader of all things. So just something to consider in this case is doing a joint session.
So I was thinking the attachment wound work group could be a good one for him, because I suspect that there's, the politician going like, well, if everybody likes you and all of those things. So I would encourage him to consider that one. That could be a good next step. Okay, the next question. I'm the betrayer in recovery. I find SLAA is great for my recovery, yet does nothing for my relationship recovery, as it's all about the addict. I'm looking for more than just SLAA to expand my emotional awareness in conjunction with my partner, in connection with my partner. Can you please list some groups for this? And I am just putting in the out of the doghouse, rebuilding your relationship. This is a work group. We have work groups. So let me back up. These are all live facilitated groups. 90 minutes per week for 6 or 12 weeks, depending on the group. And these are opportunities to learn. Angela Spearman and I were talking about for the partner one. She, teaches for about a half an hour. And I think this is pretty true with most of them. And then the next hour is, talking about the homework and talking about questions and navigating the space. And there are connections made with other people in the group if you want to, which we encourage, if you want to, that's peer connection. But those are so helpful. Many therapists recommend these for their clients because they make more progress, in these areas. So we start with sex addiction 101 or porn addiction 101, but if you've got a solid foundation, your 3 circle plan is working great. You're not, acting out regularly or looping around on that. Great. Then start digging into the deeper stuff, attachment wounds, a healthy intimacy, out of the doghouse for men who've been caught cheating. Going deeper, the inner child. I mean, there's good stuff that will help, on this journey, and it starts to really make a shift with things. So I'd encourage that. So thoughts?
No, I think that's good. I mean, we've got 14 open questions. So I think you just answered that one, and we'll put those
Okay.
in the chat. But I agree, adding some of this with emotional awareness, expanding empathy, learning how to help heal the relationship out of the doghouse is great.
Next question. After 29 years of marriage and over a decade of infidelity, primarily online, compounded by addictions to pornography, social media, and video games, what hope remains 9 months after D-Day and when my husband, displaying narcissistic traits and continued lack of genuine remorse, compassion, or empathy? I'm struggling. He's in therapy, but uses the information to justify his actions rather than acknowledge their impact. We're separated. Is there a path forward for him?
There's a path forward, but he's got to do the work. And here's the thing. I'm glad you're separated, because the shift from checking the boxes to make you happy to having an internal locus of control, which is true accountability, true awareness of what I'm doing. He's likely not going to do that in therapy alone. It's 50 minutes a week. And again, he's weaponizing what he's hearing. Of course, make sure you hear that from the therapist, because oftentimes addicts will weaponize what they hear and it's not even what the therapist said. But I think, yeah, a path forward would have to look like a lot more than just therapy once a week. It would have to look like accountability. And accountability is found in groups of other men that are going through this, that will call him on his stuff, because the truth is, you don't want to be the only one in that position. And so I think being separated is, you put a length of time on it. You put goals on that. You say, during this time, I'm going to be working on myself. I'm going to be working to heal myself from the pain that you've caused. And I'm going to be watching. I'm going to sit over here and I'm going to witness. I'm going to witness how you treat me, how you check out, how you show up, whether you do what you say you're going to do, whether you're in genuine recovery, you have a group of men around you, you say it, and then you step over here, you work on yourself, and you watch. You will know if there's a path forward if he takes any level of accountability to actually take that action on his own without your reminding, nagging, you know, telling him, threatening, any of those things. If he truly wants to do the work, he'll do the work. If he doesn't want to do the work, he won't do the work. And there's a path forward. There's a clear path forward, but he's got to be willing to get on the path and walk it.
So I put a link. We have a residential treatment program for guys like him, 14, 21, and 28-day length of stay. He wouldn't be a 14-day length of stay, just saying. So consider that. I also we have a blog with 4 different webinars. Should I stay or should I go? Just useful information. No judgment on anything, no pushing on anything. It's just more information. Can you give some direction on how to implement a boundary around lying? Some of my addict partners group members have mentioned a 24-hour rule in their relationship. They have 24 hours to come clean of a lie. Even though I don't want there to be any space for any kind of lying, I understand that integrity and honesty are a whole new world for my partner. I offered the 24-hour rule to my partner months ago. He's never taken to it. He's also been caught in lies since discovery, from exposure to certain females to breaking trigger safety plans and agreements, and who knows what else I don't know. Why would he not jump at the opportunity to be able to lie and then come clean 24 hours later? What would the protocol and natural consequence look like here? We have our own essay, Betrayal Therapists and Groups. Discovery was almost a year ago.
Yeah. So lying for a lot of these guys started in childhood. It started as good pretenders became good liars, right? And it becomes, how do I avoid loss of love? How do I avoid lack or attachment being taken away? So it is compulsive, and it is oftentimes done in a way that their prefrontal cortex is not even online. It's like it happens, and it's like they don't even think about it. Like the lie like breathing. So the 24-hour rule is meant to give some pause, to give recovery a chance to take hold. Or if I'm doing daily check-ins and I'm like talking to guys and I'm working on integrity and I'm moving towards, it's saying I'm going to make mistakes because this is something I do as easy as breathing, with as little thought as breathing. And I am going to make mistakes, but recovery is the act of actually doing the right thing after I recognize that I've lied or I've made a mistake, right? He's likely not taking you up on it because which we tell our guys to tell the truth and tell it faster on the dumb stuff. Did you take the trash out? Did you go to the gym instead of Taco Bell? Did you like the dumb stuff? That's where you get to actually start. I'm using my recovery, and it's a building block saying that, because it's like, if you can't tell the truth about the little stuff, there's no way you're going to tell the truth about the giant boulders. So I just think he's still in that place of, your mom, I'm a bad little boy, right? And I'm not taking accountability for it. So if I can get away with it and just promise to myself I won't do it again, then I'm going to go that route because it's easier to just move on. What he's not recognizing is that just moving on is causing massive slip ups in the healing of the relationship, and it's not building trust back. So he's saying it at his subconscious level, it's like, I don't want to cause conflict. I don't want to hurt her more. I don't want to lose love. I don't want to lose attachment. So like, I'm just not going to do that again. Right. And they go into their own shame spiral and then they just move on. But that doesn't heal the relationship. The hard work is coming clean. It is telling the truth to your recovery brothers, who are then going to tell you that you need to go and and come clean to your partner. So a natural protocol could be for lying. I've heard all kinds of things, but if you lie to me and you didn't even utilize this safety net that I've given you grace for 24 hours, that's huge. Like, that you're offering that and you chose not to take it. You're out of the house for 24 hours, right? Or we're not communicating until our next couple session. There's a number of ways to say, when you lie, you're not safe for me, and therefore I'm backing away. And you do that in words, actions, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, whatever ways. It's not punitive. It's saying, you're not safe for me to connect to. When you are building trust and you're respecting my boundaries, and I feel safer, and therefore I can move towards you. When you're not, I feel less trusting. I don't feel safe, and I have to move further away from you. So what I think that the guys don't realize is that telling the truth around a lie may be a moment of conflict. It may be a moment where, she's mad or and upset and slams the door. But that moment actually did build trust. It put I say, like, marble back in the jar. And so are you willing to forego that marble in the trust bucket because you're going to have an hour of discomfort over? It's like, tell the truth, right? And yeah, it goes against sometimes that subconscious self-protection, but it's that integrity has got to begin turning over. So it's important. But yeah, there's a lot of boundaries you can set around lying, but ultimately what you want it to accomplish is, you're not safe when you do this. I'm moving further away from you, whatever that looks like. Even if it's just, I'm just not communicating with you, or you're not in our bedroom tonight, or you're leaving the house for 24 hours, or whatever it is, it's focused on, I need to feel safe. And I don't when you lie to me and I catch you in it. Because the truth is, like you said, there's a bunch of stuff you don't know because he doesn't tell the truth about, he only cops two things you directly catch him for. So that doesn't build trust. Oh, you're on mute, Tammy.
That's because I had a tickly throat. So the only thing I was going to add is it isn't like wait till 20 at first. I always say the first time it's going to be 23 hours and 59 minutes, but hopefully it gets to be, 5 minutes ago when I told you I was going to the gym and I went to Taco Bell and,
Yeah.
I did.
And
Like
then eventually
we
it's like, oh my God, that lie just came out of my mouth. I had no idea
exactly,
I did that.
exactly.
I take it back. Like, let
Yeah.
me take a breath and I'm going to start over. Like we see that gap close over time. And there's less
Yes,
anxiety around it. It's like, I, I am, I don't care what the consequence is. I want integrity in my life. But
exactly.
it's a process to overturn it. It is not overnight.
And you don't have to like it, but you can go, I see that that is different, you know, if he shows up and does that. And I've just thrown a whole bunch more stuff in the chat and stuff. So, but email us, call us, whatever. We've got lots of resources for you on this healing journey. This is not easy stuff. No one knows how to do this. No one expects that X, point in time in our relationship, we're going to have to deal with this. You don't. And so that's why seeking integrity is so, is so committed to having real and meaningful resources for you, on this journey. So, please lean into them. Lots of free stuff, lots of low cost, but lots of expert treatment. When guys are stuck, like, do you really want to lose your family, your loved one over this? I hope not. And I hope you're willing to get the level of help that you need. It's worth it. So thank you, Erin. Thanks everyone for the great questions. See you next time. Bye.